Grab some popcorn and a favorite chair. The love of movies is why we're here. Press play and don't delay. Let Phil be our guide to a cinematic day. Phil at the movies, from the silver screen to his podcast stream. Phil's covering every movie dream. Phil at the movies. Phil at the movies.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Phil at the Movies. I'm your host, Phil Walsh, and this is show number 146. It's an ongoing podcast that is, you guessed it, for the love of movies. Well, here we are, second week of January, and still, I am talking about movies from last year. And frankly, what a year 2024 was, and particularly the film that I'm going to review with you today. It's from a Hollywood legend that essentially was dumped onto streaming and had a limited, and I mean a limited, theatrical release back in the fall of 24. We're talking like 50-something theaters nationwide. A travesty of epic proportions as far as I'm concerned. A film that I think 10, 15 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, would have easily cleared $200 million plus at the box office and certainly would be generating Oscar buzz. But nevertheless, the film is Juror number 2, directed by the legendary Clint Eastwood in what could very well be, I hope to God not, but it could very well be his last film. The man is 93 years young, but again, we all can't stop the ever-going march of time. Now, you can catch this film on Max, and it is one that I would highly recommend you check out at your earliest convenience, because this is the film that, in many ways, it feels like they don't make anymore, and that might be a bit of a trivial description of it, but it does feel like a movie from yesteryear. You've got great performances, a really compelling story, and a film that is perfectly executed from start to finish. Now, the film tells the story of a juror named Justin, played by Nicholas Hoult, who is called up for jury duty for a high-profile murder case, and during it he finds himself struggling with a series of moral dilemmas that could influence the outcome of this trial and potentially either convict or set this man free. Now, first off, Nicholas Hoult continues to impress me. He is an actor who, I have to say, has never been, I wouldn't say I'm a fan, I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. He's sort of serviceable in any role that he does, and there's nothing wrong with that, but he just never has had a standout, in my humble opinion. 2024 changed that for me when it comes to Nicholas Hoult. First off, Nosferatu, which, as you all probably have guessed, I enjoyed immensely. I'll be talking about that more later this year. You have a film, Juror number 2, this year, he'll be up against Superman as the villain Lex Luthor, so big things on the horizon for Hoult, but he really sells this movie, and I was sort of unsure going into this. I saw this, of course, before Nosferatu, and I was like, I'm not sure how he'll handle it in this leading capacity. Well, he makes the movie work, because he is given a chance to shine here, and for the audience, he's both our in and our sort of our journey on this story. He plays a recovering alcoholic who a few years earlier was dealing with the pressures of work and home life, and then on his way out of a bar, granted he never had a drink, that becomes important later on during the plot, but on his way home he ends up hitting something. He's not sure if it's a deer or a branch, or maybe it was nothing. He doesn't know. It's a rainy, cold, raw night, and he ends up driving home, forgets all about it, and moves on with his life. Well, flash forward a few years later, and he is called for jury duty on a murder case involving a boyfriend's alleged hit and run of his girlfriend, which just so happened to occur on the same night as Justin's possible own hit and run a few years prior. You can imagine now where this film goes from here. And I saw a critique of this movie saying, "Oh, it's unrealistic. This would never happen." That is almost irrelevant to what the movie is trying to present and achieve. The movie is about a moral reckoning. It's about making choices. It's about living with the consequences of your actions. And so for me, whether or not this is legally correct in all the technicalities and points here, that's nothing. I could care less about those sort of banalities when it comes to a movie. Am I engaged, and are the characters making decisions and engaging with dilemmas on a profound level? And that is certainly what's going on in this particular film. It's about the wrestling with one's own conscience and moral dilemmas, and it's immaculate. Eastwood knows exactly what he is doing, and he's never spoon-feeding you. He's presenting it almost as like a Greek play in a way, a Greek tragedy. It's very operatic, but not preachy, and I found that to be very effective and efficient. And again, Eastwood sort of shows us the rigors of the jury system and the pressures of the legal mechanics and machinations at work in any given trial. Toni Collette is also in this movie, and she's another one who fails to turn in a bad performance as far as I'm concerned, and she's great in this as well. She's plays the prosecutor, and she's attempting to launch her own political career, and is sort of using this high-profile murder case as a stepping stone. And it's this really fascinating intersection of ambition and self-preservation, and it works throughout this story, and it delivers a film that ultimately asks of its audience, what would you do in this situation? And I love it when movies can ask that sort of moralistic and philosophical questions. That's why I love The Dark Knight so much. It sort of has that same kind of underpinning of moral dilemmas and larger than sort of the usual kitchen table philosophical discussions. And that's what's going on here. I won't spoil the ending for you, but you can probably imagine where things start to unfold based on what I have described here. But overall, it's a tight script, flawless performances, and it's again all handled by a director who knows exactly what he's doing, and he achieves it over and over again. Eastwood is famous for having his films be under budget and under schedule, and I'm sure that was the case here with this film. And as I said at the start, if this ends up being his final film, I hope to God not. But if it ends up being his final film, if he decides to retire, it's disappointing because this film was relegated to a streaming platform, but it is still a stirring achievement, and it is certainly one of those films that is best to put on your radar to watch, and it's certainly one of the standouts of 2024 as far as I'm concerned. And it's one of those movies that it engages with its audience. And to me, those are the best kind of films. Procedurals or sort of highbrow dramas sometimes can sort of speak over the audience and just sort of try to present its message without any forethought or creative thinking. And this is one of those cases where it really does engage with the audience from start to finish and sort of, again, puts you in the position of what would you do in this scenario? And I love when a movie can toy with an audience like that. And again, you sort of, these are fun movies to watch with well, it certainly wouldn't be an audience because it's going to be on streaming, but certainly to watch with others, because you can really have those back and forth discussions about what would you do, how would you react in this situation, what would be your MO, if you will. Really, really impressive stuff, and definitely one to put on the watch list for 2025. So I salute you, Clint Eastwood. Again, a legendary career, and certainly never fails when it comes to delivering a film that is worthy of our attention, and certainly in this case it's worthy of tremendous praise and admiration. But there we have it, Juror number 2. Thank you as always for tuning in, everybody. I'll be back next week, and we'll do this all over again for the love of movies.
Makes every